Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a truly special online event today. It's called Healing Inherited Patterns Through the Kindraya Method. Activate superconscious senses to transform ancestral wounds. My name is Stephen Dine. I'm the founder and CEO of the Shift Network, and we're going to get to explore some really fascinating healing potentials here with one of the world's preeminent teachers around ancestral healing and mediumship. Her name is Dr. Lotte Valentin. She's a medical medium, psychic medium, author, and ancestral healer who's taught on the Shift Network before. She's got quite a fascinating backstory and has developed the Kindraya method as a synthesis of multiple modalities that really can help you clear patterns that have been in your family for generations. So we're going to talk more about how that happens. And if you get excited by today and want to go further, we have a brand new course with Dr. Lotte called Heal Your Ancestral Wounds Through the Kindraya Method that we'll share more about towards the end of the hour. So Dr. Lotte, thank you so much for joining us again at Shift.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.
Great. Well, let's dive in with a little bit of, first of all, a backstory with you. So I know you have a very interesting story that led to this work with ancestral healing. So maybe share a little bit about what led you to see this work with ancestral healing as so central and how you developed your methodology.
Yeah, it really is an interesting backstory. So I had two near-death experiences, one in 1992 and one in 1994. And during one of those experiences, I was shown a silvery, glittery web or a net around the earth. And I was told everything on earth is connected to each other, and everything on earth is connected to this grid. And that is really what my work has become today. So over many, many years, it activated my clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsentient abilities. And after many years of this, I was guided to go to medical school. So I went to med school when I was 54. And as soon as I graduated, was sent again to Arthur Findlay College to study mediumship. And while I was doing mediumship readings, I had several clients in a row, and the pattern would show the same every single time. So I would have a pattern of an abusive grandfather, and then that was passed down to the next generation, and it was passed down to the next generation. And I said, what is up with this? Four or five readings in a row that was exactly the same. So then that led me to study ancestral healing. And ancestral healing is a form of counseling. And so I studied ancestral healing. I started working with ancestral healing, but it's more of a cognitive understanding of it. Well, then that led me to study polyvagal theory, which is all about the nervous system. And as I'm working with people in doing ancestral healing, I realized that the way I work is I'm using my mediumistic abilities, I'm tuning into the spirit world, I'm using my intuitive abilities, I'm using my cognitive awareness of the ancestral healing and the patterns that I had learned. And so after working with this for many years, what came from that was the Kindraya. And Kindraya is a method where we are working with a three layer system. So we are working with the cognitive awareness, the somatic awareness, what's stored in the body, and we're working with it with our superconscious abilities, using our clairs and intuitive abilities. And when we put those together, it's amazing what happens because a lot of our patterns, a lot of our struggles are stored in the body before our cognitive mind even makes a connection. And so what came from this is I developed the Kindraya system, but in order to find where the pattern has its origin, what I developed was the light mapping system. And the light mapping system is a science-informed framework where we can learn where something is originating by applying that framework. So I call it the light mapping system because L stands for lineage break. I stands for interruption of love. G stands for generational rejection. H stands for hidden alignment. And T stands for transgenerational karma. Now, karma, we're not looking at karma like a punishment. It is a pattern that's unfinished that is being passed down. So when you put these two together, you get an whole science-informed system using the light mapping system Using that together with your somatic awareness and your intuitive abilities, and you can really start to understand why it is that you have certain struggles in your life.
There's a lot to unpack in all that really fascinating journey you've been on. And I like the acronym as well in terms of like really pointing to these light interruption of through a generational lens. And so let's talk a little bit. Had this original near-death experience in where you see a kind of grid work of light. So how is it that the undigested traumas or generational, multi-generational traumas sort of are manifesting in that grid and then outpicturing in our own somatic experience and lived experience?
Yes, that's a good question. So, when we look at our ancestors, it is what they experienced that gets passed down. So, let me tell you a story because I think that's going to be easier for everybody to understand. So, if we think of a woman, let's say a woman, and when she was little, she was 2 years old and her mom passed away. And there was nobody that could care for this little girl. So she was sent to an orphanage. Well, right here we have a lineage break. Somebody disappeared from the lineage. The mother passed away. It becomes an emptiness, an empty spot there. But what this little girl also learns, what her nervous system learns at that time, is that you can't trust love, right? Because love can just be taken away from you. She doesn't have the cognitive ability to understand what's really going on. What she learns is that you love someone and the next day they're not there. It's unpredictable. So then she grows up, she has a son, and whenever she tries, the son wants to get hugged and he wants, feel loved by his mom, and she loves him deeply. But every time she tries to show this love, there's something in her that pulls away because in her nervous system, it says love is not safe. And so she sort of has a tendency to not be able to open her heart fully, right? And then what happens is that son then experienced an interruption of love. The love was actually there. Many times the love is not there, but the love was there. The mom did love him, but she didn't know how to express it. So many times we don't see how things, how things have manifested in our life because we don't think about the past. Or we can look at a young woman who is raised in a household where, let's say, the father is struggles with alcoholism, and um, he tends to drink on the weekends. And every Saturday he gets mad and he yells at his kids and he yells at his wife. And that daughter, when she's a teenager, she says, "I am never gonna marry someone like that." She rejects her father's behavior. She doesn't like the way he yells. And she says, "I'm not going to repeat that." Well, so she marries someone, and the person is quite different from that. But that one thing that she rejected, the alcoholism in her father, her husband also starts drinking. And so the pattern repeats because whenever we reject something, it has a tendency to repeat because again, it's an unfinished story of the past. And so we pass things down without even knowing why. But not only do we have a pattern of rejection, we also have a pattern of hidden alignment because this young woman is now repeating her mom's her mom's life, the way her mom was experienced her husband, the way mom was getting yelled at, and now she's getting yelled at, the same way mom was getting yelled at. So hidden alignment, we have a repetition, we repeat a pattern, and we carry somebody's weight from our ancestors. It's like we have this backpack and we just stuff everything down, but we don't understand why patterns are repeating. And it's interesting because I see patterns sometimes repeating over 5 generations where you can see the same pattern. And finally, this person finds me and I can explain to them, this is a pattern that's just repeating. But then we ask, well, how do we heal it? And what do we do if we don't know people or our ancestors? Because a lot of these a lot of these things are stored in our nervous system. So when we think about how our ancestors reacted and acted during their life, it is their reactions. It's their reactions, their nervous system that gets passed down. And there's actually a great study on this. It's called Epigenetic Inheritance of Ancestral Odor Fear Conditioning. And it was a mice study. And it was done in 2013. And what they did is they exposed the male mice to a cherry blossom smell. Every time the mice smelled the cherry blossom smell, they would get an electric shock. Well, naturally, they started fearing the cherry blossom smell. Then they took the sperm from the male mice, they artificially inseminated the female mice, and those baby mice that were born now fear the cherry blossom smell. And not only that, the baby mice also had more M71 receptors, so they could detect the cherry blossom smell at an even lower level than the male mice. So you can see how it's the trauma itself, right? It's the adaptation of the nervous system from the previous generations, the adaptations that they made, that's what gets passed down.
Hmm.
So it's really interesting when we see, when we even have these studies, and we have studies on humans too, people that survived the Holocaust, and they have studies going down to the grandchildren of those people. And we can see that even the DNA changes. And so when we're struggling with our issues, and they could be anything, it could be anxiety, you don't feel seen and heard in a relationship, you could have fear of different things, or just have feelings in your body. You have chest pressure, or you clench your jaw. Well, when you start looking at where it's coming from, and that's the beauty of Kindraya, is that without knowing, because sometimes we don't have a clear understanding of our ancestors, or the trauma and the difficulties that they lived through. But when we tune into the body and we say, where do I feel that in my body? Why is it that I clench my jaw? Right? And then we can start mapping that with our ancestors and the trauma that came from them. And once we get that connection, right? Once we get it through our intuitive abilities, our somatic abilities, and our cognitive understanding, we can create healing for almost anything that we struggle with in our daily life.
Truly fascinating. I love the most recent research around the sort of cherry blossoms and how that get passed down. So in many ways, it sounds like it's like we're wired to actually pass on a sensitivity to whatever traumatizing circumstance or threat circumstance might endanger us, particularly around love, is what you're saying is for humans.
Yeah. So, when you think of your ancestors, there is a reason why why you're reacting a certain way. So let's say if you have a woman, let's say you have a woman and she is anxious and she feels over responsible. She has a hard time sleeping, and she she just feels responsible for other people's emotions. But when you start looking at it, you start saying, well, why is it that these things show up in my life? Who did these behaviors protect for my ancestors? Because when you think of it as, instead of thinking it's a struggle, right? All our struggles are just doorways, it's the body saying, hey, there's something for you here to heal, right? That's why we're having all these experiences. But once we can put it and understand where it's coming from, so this woman who can't sleep, what ancestor had to stay awake in order to be safe so that they could survive, right? Who had the responsibility? They might feel like, well, everything's going to fall apart if I don't hold it together. Well, probably something did fall apart in the ancestors' lives. And so all these traits became a necessity in order to survive.
Hmm.
But instead of saying, oh, there's something wrong with me, or I don't understand why I can't sleep, or I don't understand why I worry about all these different things, say, well, who in the family was kept safe by having these traits? Where is this coming from? Because the nervous system is just going to keep repeating everything until it says, I don't need to do this anymore. I don't have to be afraid of the sirens, or I don't have to be afraid of crossing the bridge. That was something that relates to my ancestors. But when we start thinking of how our ancestors' nervous system had to adapt to keep us safe, right? That's when we can really start creating healing. And when you look at the light mapping system, that is that science informed framework so that we can help finding things. And if you think of when you're driving your car and you're driving along, and then all of a sudden a light comes on your dashboard, right? So then you say, okay, what's wrong? Something is wrong. And you might notice the car is kind of pulling to the right as you're driving. And then you pull over and you realize that it's one of your tire lights, right? So that's the light mapping system. It says there is something wrong. The tires is where you're going to look for the problem. Just like the light mapping system says, okay, it's an interruption of love, or it's a generational break. So it tells you where to look. And so you go around the car and you say, okay, it's my front right tire. It has a nail in it. And now you know what the problem is. But it's the same thing with the light mapping system because it gives you that framework, just like the lights on your dashboard. It tells you where to look. It doesn't tell you exactly what's wrong. It says one of the tires. It's all it tells you, right? But then you have to figure out what it is with that tire. Did a tire fall off, or is it a nail in it, or did it just split open, or what happened, right? But that's the same thing with this light mapping system. It gives you that framework so that you know where to look. And so if you say, I have TMJ, I have so much jaw pain. You say, well, why do you have jaw pain? Now you start thinking of the light mapping system, you might say, well, it's highly likely that it could be from generational rejection. Why do you think it's generational rejection? Well, the jaw, you need the jaw to speak, to have a voice, right? You're talking. Generational rejection, somebody, for someone, it was not safe to speak. We know that there was a problem. Probably they were being put down. There was, no love, and there was just a lot of issues being in that family. It was just unsafe to be heard, right? And then sometimes we might have self-criticism. And that, again, that's going to come from that generational rejection where we then start ourselves to become self-critical. So that whole light mapping system helps you figure out where to look for it.
Hmm.
But then at the same time, we might only have a physical symptom, and then we take that and we apply the light mapping system onto the symptom.
So I imagine that some of the source energy, unresolved traumas is going to be generational. Some might be karmic from your own soul inheritance, and some is just in this lifetime. How important is it to discern, like, where is it coming from? Is it good to just assume that there's probably a generational component to each challenge that we're faced with?
I'm going to say there's definitely, I mean, from my work and what I see, I'm going to say there's a generational component to everything that we experience because we are part of, just like that grid they showed me in my near death experience, we are part of something much greater than we can understand. And when we create healing for ourselves, that healing resonates and reverberates through this, I'm going to say, network. And this is what I see when I work with people because there could be a break in communication where people haven't spoken to their child or their mother for 5 or 10 years. And then we do ancestral healing. And then 2 weeks later, I get an email saying, guess what? This person just called me who I haven't spoken to in years. And I hear these stories all the time how when we change, there is something that changes. But when you think about it, right, think of your nervous system, how when you're angry, other people feel that. When you're happy and you're giving out hugs left and right, people feel that too. Because we tune in to other people's nervous system. And just like a baby, right, a baby is completely dependent on the adult's nervous system because they co-regulate their nervous system with the adult's nervous system. So again, when you think of how the world or the family that you were born in, what was going on in your parents' life? Why is it that they may have had a hard time being available for you when you were little? Because that nerve, you co-regulated with their nervous system when you were little. What was going on in their life when you were just an infant? But that's also what your nervous system learns. But what you learn comes from your parents and they come from their parents. And many times we see the patterns that are carried down in the families go on for many generations until somebody, is that cycle breaker in their family and says, wait a second, why is it that this keeps happening? Right? And that's the same thing with the transgenerational karma. Many times people say, I have done everything. Why is it that this keeps happening? I'm going to say transgenerational karma. Transgenerational karma is like the record is stuck in the same groove. It just keeps playing the same tone, or the same notes over and over again until somebody comes along and says, wait a second, why does this pattern keep repeating? But the way we heal it is just creating an understanding, creating a witness. We're witnessing what happened in the past because when we witness, our nervous system changes. So, and I think that's the beauty of Kindraya is that we integrate our intuitive abilities, our somatic abilities with our cognitive awareness. And so using all those three systems together, we can really create that deeper healing and an understanding of why it is that we even struggle with anything.
Hmm. I want to ask a little bit about the the witnessing changing your nervous system. I think that's a really interesting concept. That is just the sheer act of witnessing. I imagine it's like witnessing. You mean it in a more specific way, right? So it has to do with a certain quality of how you're witnessing, not just becoming aware of, but it's like really being able to see it more neutrally or see it more deeply. You want to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so when you witness something, when you start having a clear understanding, sometimes you know your ancestors and sometimes you may never have met that grandfather. Your family might not even have talked about it. But many times we know intuitively, we can feel it, we can sense it in the field where it's coming from. But when we witness something, there is something that changes within us. Because if you have a fear, let's say, of crossing bridges, but when you sit with that and you say, where is that coming from? Oh, yeah, now I remember this story. My grandfather died because the bridge collapsed. Of course, you're going to have the whole family now has a fear of bridges, right? Is an adaptation of that nervous system. But when you sit with that and you witness that and say, that was something that happened in the past. I don't have to carry that anymore. I don't even cross bridges. I cross a bridge once a year when we go on vacation, right? But it's something that was passed down, that fear, I'm going to say just like the cherry blossom smell. But when we realize we don't have to have the fear, we don't have to carry the burden anymore, and we can just witness that and we can send healing to that, that's when things change in our own nervous system.
Mhm.
So we have to bring our own system out of that fight or flight and into a calm state because it's not until we're calm that we can really process things. It's like people have spiritual blocks. It's because the nervous system, is blocked, most likely an interruption of love.
Mhm.
So we get blocked because we didn't get that piece. But once we can witness it and understand and see it, then something changes within us, right? We become a different person because we create an understanding for it.
I want to also ask you a little bit more about how the body itself holds the ancestral memories and how you can sort of see those as doorways or clues into mapping the deeper dimensions that are part of the ancestral memories.
Yeah. Yeah. So the body holds the memories, right? Many times before we even know what the problem is. There are lots of things that we do automatically, like that jaw clenching. We clench the jaw because there is most likely a generational rejection somewhere that caused us to talking is not safe. Holding on to your own feelings is what has to happen because there's somebody that was put down, somebody was rejected, it wasn't safe to be visible, and so we hold things in. So it's like we clamp down, or we may have like a pressure in our chest. Anytime we get close to having an intimate relationship, our chest, we get this feeling in our chest or heaviness or tightness in our chest because at some point love wasn't safe, right? Love was pulled away like the mother who died suddenly, right? That little child learned that love is not safe. Or it could be something else like where love was pulled away, like the child's parents might have been sent off, to war. And again, the parents were alive, but the child didn't have any contact with them. So they got sent away to somebody else. And again, it's that, love was there and then it was taken away. It's the what happens to the nervous system at that point. But that's what we then carry in our body. We create, little energy rocks in some way where we hold information in our body. But all this, it's just a matter of creating awareness as to why is it that I have this feeling? Or why is it that I have shoulder pain or upper back pain? Well, it could be because you're working on a computer and you're not sitting correctly. But what if you're not? What if you can't explain why you have this upper back pain, or why it feels so heavy? Why does it feel like I'm carrying somebody else's weight? Probably because you are. So it might be that you're repeating a pattern. You're repeating a pattern from your immediate family. It could be your parents, your grandparents, or maybe earlier generations. But when we put that in our invisible backpack, so to speak, and we carry that with us, but we can't, it's not until we see it or understand, we can open that up, that we can really create awareness for it and then release it from the body.
Fascinating. I next want to ask you a little bit about language and how we can use language as a way to, gain clues into some of these lineage wounds and how to sort of access them and heal them.
Yeah, the language is very interesting. And we're going to be working with all these different parts of Kindraya during this course. The language that we use, we think it's just random, but it's not random. When we describe our problems, we typically use words that have some kind of a meaning, an ancestral meaning. So somebody might say, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells, right? Why do they say that? Well, because it was an unsafe environment that either they experienced or somebody else experienced. So that gets passed down to the next generation. And every term that we use, if you say, I feel like I'm shackled in chains. Well, I'm sure you weren't shackled in chains yourself, but why is it that you use that terminology? Was somebody in your family a prisoner of war? Where is that language coming from? So many times we use words to express our feelings or emotions or struggles, but they have a deeper meaning. And so when we start looking at the words we're using when we describe an issue, we can often trace it back to our ancestors and something that happened to them.
Fascinating. Well, Dr. Latte, you're just there's so much to learn from you around ancestral healing, and I also want to give some time to have a direct experience of it as well. So I think now would be a great time to go into the experiential that you were going to lead us in.
Yes, yeah, I would love that. And we're going to tune in to the ancestral field. So let's start by just taking a deep breath in through our nose and exhale through our mouth. So allow yourself to arrive. Just be present. And if you're comfortable closing your eyes, you can close your eyes. Or if you're more comfortable just keeping a soft gaze in front of you, that is fine too. Now feel your feet on the floor, touching the floor or surface below you. And feel that weight of your body just being supported by the chair, or if you're lying down. There is nothing to hold, nothing to perform, nothing to get right. And just take a slow inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. And let your shoulders soften. And just let that breath drop lower all the way down to your belly. And the belly is often the place that knows, that little gut brain that we all have. And with your next breath, imagine your awareness just settling inside your body. just like a snow globe after it's been shaken. Everything just sort of settles down. You don't need to do anything, just be here. Just be present in your body, here with your breath, in this moment. Now, silently inside, let these words come to your awareness. I am safe. I am present. I belong here. Now, one more slow breath. And now imagine, gently without effort, that behind you stretches a vast tapestry of life. Generations and generations of those who walked before you. Not as stories or memories, but as threads of light woven together. Some threads might be bright, some threads might be dim, some may be tangled, or some are just simply forgotten. But all of them are connected. And there you are, a luminous point in this great web. You are not separate from your lineage. You are part of the lineage. You are a continuation of the lineage. Not because of obligation, but because your soul chose to carry forward something meaningful. Now, gently bring your attention to the maternal line, your mother's side of the family, the lineage behind you. You may imagine all the people in this line, or simply sense the maternal field itself. You don't need to see faces. You may sense through feeling, emotion, body tone, or a quiet knowing. Just notice the overall tone of this maternal line. Does it feel soft or strong? Is it silent or expressive? Does it feel burdened, anxious, or maybe loving? Does it feel tired, resilient? Don't analyze, just sense. You may know people in this line, or you may never have met them. It doesn't matter. Let whatever is present be. Now we are gently going to shift our awareness to the paternal line, your father's side of the family, the lineage behind you. And you may imagine the people of this line, or simply sense the paternal field. Notice any contrast, or maybe similarity. Does this line feel protective or distant? Does it feel chaotic or steady? Does it feel proud or maybe wounded? Quiet, strong? Again, no interpretation, just notice. Now ask your body this question, not the thinking mind. Ask your body, what am I carrying that did not begin with me, that is ready to heal through me? Now let that first sensation or first word, image, or emotion arise, no matter how subtle. Maybe a tightness, a sadness, a pressure to be perfect, a sense of being small, or maybe a fear of speaking. Just feel one thread. Now notice where this feeling lives in your body. So feel it in the throat, the heart, solar plexus, the belly, the jaw, the shoulders, or somewhere else. There is no right or wrong answer, only your body's truth. Now, gently, without needing to be exact, see where this originates. Does this feel like a break in the lineage? Something that altered the architecture of the lineage itself? Maybe a trauma, loss, or disruption that severed the natural flow of connection within the family line? Maybe an interruption of love, where the bonding with someone broke. A generational rejection, where you rejected someone or someone else in the lineage was rejected. A repeated pattern, where you are repeating something an ancestor already lived. Or maybe there is a transgenerational karma, not punishment, but an energetic continuation of what ancestors endured, enacted, or left incomplete. And unresolved consequence traveled forward into your life. Let the first one that resonates rise into your awareness. Trust the first answer. Now speak quietly inside to the part of the lineage where this began. You don't need to know the name of the person. Just speak to the place in the web and say, I see you. I feel this with you. You're not alone anymore. And then add, this pattern is not a burden. It is an invitation for healing. Now take a breath into the place in your body where the pattern lives. And as you exhale, imagine your breath traveling back through the lineage, through the web, as a golden light, soft, gentle light, not forcing change, just offering recognition and tenderness. One breath, one shift, one lineage healing together. And when you are ready, you may open your eyes knowing that something meaningful has begun. So what you just experienced is only the doorway. In the full program, we don't just sense the pattern, we map it, we understand it, we speak to it, and ultimately we transform it.
Hmm.
Because when one wound heals, the entire lineage shifts. And sometimes what an ancestor could not complete is exactly what your soul came here to finish.
Hmm. That's beautiful. So when you're working in this way, you will tend to focus on one pattern and really sort of work it the multiple layers for a while until it feels it comes to completion.
Yeah, exactly. You try to pinpoint which pattern it is and where it came from. And even if, regardless whether you know your ancestors or not, you have that lineage mapping system that helps you understand where the struggles came from, where they are originating. Many times we don't know our parents. We might be
Hmm.
adopted and we don't have any knowledge of them. And I worked with people like that, and it's fascinating what comes through because those people always have to think of two sets of parents, the parents that raised them and their biological parents. But sometimes we don't, it doesn't make sense with the parents that raised us. And then we know it's coming from the biological parents. But with that light mapping system and the somatic awareness and our intuitive awareness, we can pretty much pinpoint where it's coming from and then create healing for that.
I appreciated how you sort of acknowledged or gave gratitude for this as a healing opportunity to the original source of the ancestral pattern. I thought that was that's a very nice part of the method.
Yeah. Because the ancestors, they heal on the other side. And it's funny because I've got a confirmation of that studying mediumship at Arthur Findlay College when the teacher has told me that the ancestors in the spirit world felt the healing I sent. So I know they feel it on the other side
Hmm.
too.
That's really
It's
fascinating. So
fascinating.
regardless of whether
Yeah.
they've incarnated into another body, their soul is somehow registering that acknowledgement and healing.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's that interconnectedness that they showed me during my NDE that we are part of a greater divine system. And, the whole ancestral, the way we are, our souls are connected to something much greater. And it's part of this dynamic system where when we create healing, it resonates with everybody else, whether they're alive or in the spirit world.
Mm. Well, Dr. Latte, you're clearly fascinating information here, and you're clearly a master of this work. So let's talk a little bit about how people can dive deeper with the Kindraya method and do so in your upcoming course. So we're very excited. Dr. Latte has agreed to teach this program. It's called Heal Your Ancestral Wounds Through the Kindraya Method, Transform Inherited Patterns Through Your Superconscious Senses and the Light Mapping System. You can see it at the URL kindrayaancestralhealing.com. That's Kindraya, ancestralhealing.com. It's a 7-week program. There are no prerequisites for this. And Dr. Lotte, I'd love for you to share about some of your intentions for what people will come away from the program with.
Yes, I mean, I truly love this work because it gives people tools to create healing in their own life, and it's something that they can revisit over and over again. And all the struggles that we carry with us every single day, um, when we go through a program like this and create healing for ourselves, not only do we create healing for ourselves, but we create healing for the people that we love, for our family members, for the people in our ancestors in the spirit world. So we become, more loving, more compassionate. We can live our life to our fullest in such a different way when we can peel away all the different struggles and issues that we face in daily life, because everybody carries ancestral wounds and ancestral issues. It's just a matter of understanding where they come from so we can release it.
Beautiful. Well, let's go through the program in a little bit more detail and give a preview of what's coming. So, Module 1 is called Discover the Light Mapping System and Enter the Web to Awaken Your Superconsciousness and the Kindraya Field.
Yeah, so in the first module, we're going to dip our toes in everything. So we'll start become familiar with the light mapping system, but we'll also start working intuitively right away and start develop our intuitive abilities.
Module 2, activate your superconscious perception to access your inner spiritual technology and perceive energy, memory, and ancestral signals.
Yes, and in this module, we really dive deep into our intuitive abilities, and we'll be working with all of our clairs, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, and claircognizance. And we will learn which clair is the most active for us, which is the strongest clair. So this is where we really start developing our intuitive ability.
Module 3, uncover a complete map of your ancestral architecture to understand what you are here to heal and why it chose you.
That's when we start putting things together. So now that we developed our clairs, we're going to start integrating the light mapping system and working somatically, cognitively, and superconsciously.
Module 4, begin to witness ancestral wounds with presence and softness by cultivating capacity, safety, and inner spaciousness.
Yes. So as we're working, it's important to create presence and just be able to witness what is happening and creating that safety and ability to witness the lineage without absorbing it into your body.
Module 5, trace and heal the superconscious thread of your lineage by understanding the symbolism and vibrational impact of your language.
Yes. So now we are starting to work with wounds using the language as well. So we are going to do what's called inspired writing or automatic writing, where we are channeling information and using our knowledge and see what words come up and how we phrase these words, because the words also show us a path to the wound.
Module 6, craft your Kindraya healing language to engage ancestral wounds and activate release, remembrance, and connection.
So here we learn to integrate the words that have come up, but we're also tuning into the ancestral field. We're working intuitively or mediumistically and somatically, and we are starting to understand what it is that has to be released and what that healing looks like. And we craft our healing sentences based on intuitive awareness, somatic awareness, and cognitive awareness, and what the language showed us. And we integrate that into our healing sentences that we then carry forward into Module 7.
Finally, Module 7, experience the vibration of wholeness resonating through the ancestral web through your healing.
Yeah, so this is where we create healing for the one wound that they would like to create healing for. And we do a deep meditative journey where we release and heal our nervous system, heal the ancestors, and heal the ancestral web by what I call soul to soul communication. And I'll be guiding them in that meditative journey.
Well, what a truly fascinating and groundbreaking program, and really grounded in so much of what you've integrated your whole life, as well as the leading edge of science. So, really cool program. I think I'm sure it's going to be super valuable for everybody who does it. So, again, it's all at kindrayancestralhealing.com. I'll share a little bit more about some of the structure of this. So you get 7 90-minute live sessions with Dr. Lotte, which we've just heard described. This will include time to do interactive practices together, as well as have Q&A time and get the core transmission of the teachings. You'll get recordings of every session, both video and audio, as well as word-for-word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight. There are weekly practices for home. There's a community group to support you and deepen your experience, as well as a number of extra bonuses that Dr. Lotte has been very generous in adding to really complement your journey. There's a whole PDF called the Kindraya Companion, 43 Days of Superconscious Lineage Awakening. Want to share more about that, Dr. Lotte?
Yes, and I love this part because it's really embarking on a transformative journey where not are you going to be able to solve your ancestral wounds, but you're also becoming more intuitive. So this PDF is all about helping people become more intuitive, and it has a 5-minute exercise for each day as we go along with the whole program. So think of it as like 7 weeks, and every day you do a 5-minute exercise. But the way you start that journey and the way you end up in that journey 7 weeks later, you're going to have become way more intuitive because it's that little tiny practice that you add every day that helps you develop your intuitive abilities because we are all intuitive creatures.
That's a great bonus. And the second bonus is called Activating Your Inner Light. This is an audio meditation with Dr. Lotte and Geraldine Glass, also a Shift faculty member. Want to share more about that bonus?
Yeah, that is a fabulous meditation that um, is it's recorded in, I believe it was 432 pentatonic scale, where Geraldine Glass plays in that scale. And I guide the people in a meditative journey. And it's really creating healing and activating that ancestral field. So it is a fabulous meditation. It is just so calming and so healing.
And then there's a third bonus that's available if you sign up by midnight tonight Pacific time. We always like to do this as a way to encourage you to really take the time now at Kindraya ancestralhealing.com. Read through the page, really tune in with your own inner knowing. And if you're getting the nudge to move forward, then you have an extra incentive to do so today. This is a video dialogue with Dr. Lotte and Jessica Dibb. It's called Opening the Doorway to Intuitive Wisdom. Want to share more about that bonus?
Yes, that is a great video program where we talk about, the breath work, and how that opens the door to ancestral healing. Because it's all Kindraya is part, the name is part of breath. The Aya of Kindraya is breath. Kin is relatives. And then we have Indra, which is Indra's net. So Kindraya is part of that is breath, is the spirit. So it's a great program where Jessica and I talk about ancestral healing and breath work. And she also guides us in a breath work meditation during that.
Well, that's a great way to cross pollinate with other methodologies and join in with the Kindraya method and breath work. And so, what a great extra bonus! And folks sign up today. So again, there's a little more detail on that at kindrayaancestralhealing.com. A few other things. So we've kept this investment for this program very accessible. It's just three payments of $128. So you save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to start February 23rd and run Mondays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Even if you can't make the live times, that you can still get the full value with the recordings and the transcripts and the community as well. So you can add this to your transformational library for years to come. So there's some great testimonials on the page from students in Dr. Lotte's previous course at the Shift Network. Meeting Dr. Lotte has been a life-changing experience. Thanks to her, I've understood my mission and been given meaning where I needed it most. Healing you gave was filled with love for me and my loved ones. I'm forever grateful. Really great testimonials about the depth and power of her work, and it's clearly emerging from a lot of deep experience and practice and teaching and training of others. So you're in really good hands, and you will experience some very powerful healings if you move forward. And again, it's all at kindrayaancestralhealing.com. So, Dr. Lotte, we're at the end of our time. Anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering doing the course with you?
Oh, I really hope that a lot of people will join because this is such a great opportunity to create transformation, not just in your own life. And just remember that if you create healing for yourself, that's going to affect everybody around you and all your loved ones.
Beautiful. But ultimately, the more healing that we create in our lives, the better our lives are, the better our planet is. So thank you for really pioneering this methodology that integrates so many important elements together. So thank you, Dr. Lotte. Thank you all for joining. Many blessings. And if you'd like to go further, again, the course is called Heal Your Ancestral Wounds Through the Kindraya Method, and it is at kindrayaancestralhealing.com, and you'll get that special bonus with Dr. Lotte and Jessica Dibbs on opening the doorway to intuitive wisdom if you sign up by midnight tonight. So thank you so much. Many blessings.